Hello everybody. In a moment I'm going to tune into the astrology chart of this week. I have it pulled up below, but maybe I can't see it perfectly. Anyway, just taking a moment to tap into the sunset. The eclipse is happening November 18th, or 19th actually, in most of the world. In some parts it'll be maybe on like the Pacific side of the US, it'll still be November 18th, very late. It's actually the longest eclipse in 500 years. I read that and I thought that was very interesting. The moon is in the Pleiades, so it's connected to the star system, the Pleiades. So it's going to be bringing in that energy, which a lot of us know is very extraterrestrial. I channel the Pleiadian beings and work with their frequency. It's a very loving, open, expansive energy. And the eclipse is going to bring that energy in as well. The ancient way of looking at eclipses is that they're created by these two bodies called Rahu and Ketu. Lunar eclipses especially connected with Rahu, though both of them are connected with Rahu and Ketu. Eclipses happen about every 6 months. Rahu and Ketu slowly move backwards through the ecliptic. They're the only backward moving planetary bodies in astrology. And in both Western and Vedic mythologies, the Rahu is the serpent's head, Ketu is the serpent's body. And in Vedic myth, they were once one being, and it was an asura, a being without light, or a demon. And this being tried to sneak in line to get the nectar of immortality. But in that very moment, the sun and the moon noted that this was not a deva, it was an asura, and said that to Vishnu, who beheaded the being. But because the being had already tasted the nectar of immortality, Rahu and Ketu became separated but immortalized. And they're considered malefic, though in Western astrology we do consider that they are evolutionary forces. So a very traditional ways of viewing things were that energies that were harder, that might have been connected to loss, or the darker aspects of life, or transformation, or even in these ancient systems, Rahu was connected to use of substances, surgeries, technologies, anything that gets the mind moving very fast, anything that gets you kind of piercing the veil of mystery and kind of exploring the taboo in a way. Those are all considered Rahuvian. But in the modern world, we know that these things are just evolutionary. They're just pushing our consciousness in these states. So the eclipses tend to bring that energy as well. And especially as this brings this quality of red light. The red is connected with our root chakra, and Rahu Ketu are both connected with the serpent. So it is awakening the power of that inner serpent energy. And as eclipses bring in these intense waves, it's a really powerful time to work through blockages. And it is also a time when, even if we're not conscious of the blockages we're working through, the shadows we're bringing to the light, things come to the surface and we have to face them. So I've seen people in eclipse windows who weren't so conscious of the fact that an eclipse is happening get into crazy circumstances like near-death experiences, motorcycle accidents. I've gotten into a lot of conflicts around the eclipse. Of course, all of this depends on where it lands in our chart, but also there is something to it of they're always intense. They're always bringing up intensity, and it's our job to be able to sit with and look at that intensity, move it. So, hi. So this eclipse is in Taurus, and it is in Taurus in both sidereal and tropical. I hope I don't start confusing people as I'm studying both systems. How can a planet be in two different signs at once? That's a subject for another video. I'm not quite ready for it today. But basically, there's different ways of measuring it, and different systems of astrology calculate many different charts that put planets in very different places to look at different aspects of one's life. So now let's just talk about what's going on. First of all, in the sign of Taurus, this planetary body causing the eclipse Rahu is considered exalted. Rahu is essentially connected with those things that are about the kind of craving for the material world and it's like this deep inner hunger. It's a head without a body, so it's continuously hungry. And those are the things that bring us into the material plane. And Taurus is all about the material plane. It's about pleasure, art, love, beauty, connection. And Taurus is very strong and known to be stubborn. So stubborn is a good thing in the way that it helps us manifest and move forward. And while these, as we know in the West, it's in the stars of the Pleiades, which I can continue to speak of, in the Vedic mythology, that is known as Kritika. And Kritika were 7 sisters who were beloved by these, I think there are other 7 stars of the Big Dipper. There was a relationship between them. The 7 stars of the Big Dipper were rishis, and these 7 sisters of the Pleiades, as we call them, were beautiful beings, and this fire god Agni really wanted them, so convinced this other being to kind of help them find union, but they were deceived, and that other being was said to give birth to the children of these Kritika, these 7 sisters. And as that rumor spread, the sisters learned of it, and they left the other beings, and then they became those stars out there. That is their myth. So there's something here about the mythology of wanting and craving and losing, kind of due to misinformation. So it's important to be really clear. And this is symbolized by a razor's edge. And that razor's edge is to cut us loose from things that no longer serve us. Eclipses are always this portal for the next kind of year or 6 months, especially where it's visible, and especially because this is a very long eclipse, it's going to be with us for quite some time. So it's a really good time to call in, what are you cutting yourself loose from? What kind of illusions are you getting immersed in that are no longer serving you? So beyond that, what else to say about that? Oh yeah, so the eclipse is visible in all of North America and parts of Europe, I believe, and wherever the eclipse, if the eclipse is visible for you, it's a good thing to observe it. The traditional views don't look at it. It brings in this, crazy, frantic energy, and it's really about creating a safe space where you can take that energy in, because it is a kind of awe-inspiring energy that kind of, takes us from the light into the darkness and back into the light. So it illuminates, though we have to observe carefully. And especially these places are going to be feeling this influence a lot more powerfully than those places that don't observe the eclipse, so everyone will be impacted by it in some way. Now, what other planets are getting involved in the eclipse? That's very interesting to look at as well. And I can't touch the screen because it'll turn the whole video off, but I can look very closely to see those little glyphs. So in opposition, first of all, to Mercury is with the sun, and Mercury is our mental body, our mind, and our intellect. It's about exchange of ideas and goods and services and studies and how we apply our mind. So there is a more mental quality to this. There can be a reset to our mind. We can start to look at things differently. Perhaps some of the things we're letting go of are also a mental letting go of old ideas and old way of seeing things. There's an aspect of Jupiter that is square to the moon and the sun. So Jupiter being that balance point here, it brings an expansive energy. Jupiter is considered the great benefic, so Jupiter will always bring gifts and joys. It can bring perhaps exuberance. The potential shadow side of Jupiter is overindulgence, overdoing things, excess spending, excess with the moon, excess comforts or excess things to kind of soothe, excess putting yourself in the spotlight. But I don't like to look at the excess as much as appreciating the abundance that Jupiter brings and the knowledge that Jupiter brings. Even though a square is a harder aspect, the square does align that Jupiter energy with everything else and expands it. And Jupiter being considered the great benefic is also backed up by science in this really interesting way that when you think scientists have kind of theorized that Jupiter is a key part of why this planet still exists with life on it, because Jupiter is so huge, it pulls in potential asteroids that could destroy our planet or cause cataclysms into its own orbit. So that is another reason why Jupiter is such a powerful, good influence for us, and it's great to see where Jupiter is playing in. Now, upcoming as we go towards the eclipse, there's this opposition from Mars to Uranus, which is exact pretty soon. And the Mars-Uranus opposition can kind of bring accidents or sudden changes. Mars is related to cutting and shedding, breaking things. It's related to aggression, but also willpower. So the positive side of it is to use our willpower to make sudden changes. We might be inspired to make sudden changes. And there's another planet involved in that T-square. What is it? I guess Saturn. Oh yeah, Saturn, the ongoing Saturn-Uranus thing. I don't want to talk too much about that because we've talked about that a lot, but it's about, the rebellion on the planet, the kind of oppressive authority versus the humanitarian rebellion. And there's more waves of that coming in, but with Mars involved, it takes it to a personal level because Mars is a personal planet. And I think that the positive of this aspect is just kind of like that energy of Kritika, the cutting loose. So there can be a sudden cutting loose of things that don't serve when we tap into the power of that divine masculine energy. Many other planets here. Let's see if my eyes can decipher all of this that's appearing in the tiny corner of my screen. Right, so there's also the aspect of Uranus sextile Venus. And Uranus sextile Venus creates, again, sudden changes, as that's what Uranus is about, awakening, which is what Uranus is about, but in the realm of relationships, love, and connection. So in our intimate circles, or as we kind of relate to our finances, there can be a sudden change that takes place with this eclipse. There can be this sudden awakening that happens and changes how we relate to ourselves and to each other. And especially as Venus is that planet ruled by Taurus, and again the eclipse is in Taurus, there is a connection there, that there can be this really big shift in how we relate to others, how we relate to love and romance, and also values and money, which are all Taurus Venus themes. And Pluto is involved making some aspects here. Pluto is sextile to the Sun, which points out some great transformation at work. We can use Pluto as this kind of underworld entity that helps us in getting in touch with the darkness and shedding and letting things go. So whenever we see a Pluto aspect, we know there is a more potent release process in place. With all that said, if we want to look ahead, we can look at what Venus is going to be doing. And of course, just with the fact that Uranus is in the same sign as the moon right now, there is just an unexpected, uncanny awakening quality to the eclipse itself, which is, an eclipse impact in its own right, even without the Uranus influence there. But now this is an eclipse in a Venus-ruled sign that's happening kind of a month and a week before Venus retrograde begins towards the end of the year, or maybe it's the beginning of next year. But anyway, the pre-shadow retrograde phase is all happening through December. And Venus retrograde happens every year and a half. And this is also the Venus retrograde where Venus shifts from being the evening star, which you can see in the sky. She's not quite out right now. Oh, yeah, she is. Maybe, I don't think my camera's going to pick this up on Facebook Live, but I'm pointing the camera towards Venus at least. Maybe by the end of the video we'll be able to see Venus better. And so Venus retrograde is a review of our relations and our love, perhaps our finances as well. And it's in the sign of Capricorn, and in sidereal it is in Sagittarius. So we can talk a little bit about both of those. First of all, in Capricorn, it's really a practical energy, and it's about kind of having a more detached approach to our relationships. I'm already kind of feeling this as I have a lot of Capricorn energy, and it's going to be transiting some very potent places in my chart. It's like we need to kind of nurture ourselves. Capricorn is the father energy, so it's about perhaps learning how we can have our own paternal energy for ourselves, parent ourselves in that masculine way, so that we don't seek that in relationships, whatever gender of partner we date. We want to be able to have this energy, the archetypes of the divine father and the divine mother and the divine parent, might be gender neutral, all within us, and be able to hold those spaces for ourselves and not seek it from the other. So that might be a theme that comes up as we're going through this retrograde cycle. How do we really hold and nurture ourselves and give ourselves that beautiful paternal energy? And having more detachment, having a more practical focus, seeing the ways that perhaps not being practical or being too indulgent has led us to experience some of the shadow sides of Venus that are overindulgence or jealousy or great attachment, and letting that go so that we can also be focused on more practical and expansive values. So as Venus goes through that period, Venus will be invisible for some time, and then Venus will appear again as the morning star. And periods with Venus as the evening star are considered harder and more challenging, times of perhaps war or conflict. So we like when Venus reappears at the morning as the morning star, because the mornings are charged with a much more positive energy. Regardless of whether you're a morning person or a night person, it's good to open into that. And sometimes if you want to really call in a clear headspace, it's good to wake up in the early hours of the morning, or stay up till the early hours of the morning, to kind of feel that and call that in and be with that peacefulness. But now we're kind of saying goodbye to Venus as she goes into the underworld and goes invisible, and letting those deeper Venusian qualities marinate and come to understand them and integrate them more. So somebody's writing, I can't touch the screen and look at the comments too much because I have it on this weird setting. It'll stop the video if I do something. That's what's happened before. But somebody says, I have Venus in Capricorn. So if you do have Venus in Capricorn, this is going to be a very potent cycle for you, because you are going to get to witness even more of your own qualities and have a review of your own Venus energy and how to tap into that more in clear ways. So beyond all of this, this is my take on the astrology of it and so on and so forth. But yeah, we will have a solar eclipse in 2 weeks from the lunar eclipse, and that will be in tropical Sagittarius, sidereal Scorpio. So there's even more coming, and that eclipse is more connected with Ketu, which is shedding, letting go, releasing, renouncing, to tap into a more spiritual place. So I see that this the lunar eclipse connects more with this kind of deep energy, Kundalini energy coming from the root. The solar eclipse comes from the crown, and they call it corona for a reason. Anyway, I want to talk about more of this Pleiades energy as the eclipses bring that in. And, you know, the eclipse is happening on the night of my 30th birthday, and that's really special, and especially because the eclipse then happens to be in the Pleiadian cluster, which I channel. It's just such a synchronicity. And the Pleiadian energy is very different from some of the other extraterrestrial energies that are channeled out there. I think a lot of the people that might be connected to my work listen to channels from the hybrid beings like Bashar, Yagel, Sasani, and the Pleiadian beings are in a sense more ancient, but they do, have this quality of like that Taurus energy in their message, which is, also connect with pleasure. Bashar talks about it as excitement, but when coming through the Pleiadian beings, like they always encourage me to kind of loosen up my grip, my over-seriousness, all of these spiritual ideas that I've been taught of this is the right way to be, that's the wrong way to be, this is how you have to be to channel the spiritual energy. They're like, well, the best way to be spiritual is to lighten up on yourself, to tap more into this divine love by giving yourself what you love, by giving yourself the quality of love, experiencing it through your senses, experiencing it through your body. Taurus is so much about embodiment, and I think the Pleiadian message is for us to be embodied, to realize that we are here and we're not, we are also out there in the stars, but we don't need to be like those star beings, the way that they live in their star reality, which is almost non-physical. We came into physicality to have physical senses and enjoy them and expand into them. So there is this quality with Pleiades energy and Taurus energy. Surrender to your senses, enjoy them, give yourself a bubble bath, get yourself a massage, spend time with a beautiful lover. If you don't have a lover, treat yourself out on a date as if you did have one. Fall in love with yourself and experience that love on a cellular level in your body. And use that as the way to cut yourself free from those things that are holding you back and keeping you limited and stuck. And that will send you on amazing trajectories into love and joy. So for the eclipse day only, I'm offering readings, $33 half an hour, $66 an hour. So those are available tomorrow, Wednesday. You can book them through contacting me, dantestarshine@gmail.com, or whatever social media platform you connected to me on. Just thought I'd throw that in there. And the Pleiadian Council live stream channeling is tomorrow, not Thursday, because I'm going into ceremony on Thursday night. I just want to keep my energy clear from working with other people and connecting with other energies, to be in my own sacred space and really stay in tune with my intentions and myself for that night. So, if any of that is interesting to you, hope you hop on the call tomorrow, and we'll do a meditation at the end to learn how to channel that eclipse energy into ourselves, into our bodies, and really let it flourish and shine through us. So I'm really looking forward to that and sharing that with y'all. So I might just get disconnected now. I thought I'd look at the comments for a second, but it might disconnect me as soon as I touch the screen again. Anyway. So if I disappear, thanks for watching this. Enjoy the eclipse. Hope you get to watch it and take it in through all of your being and let it release you. Be very intentional with what you want to release and what you want to work through, because the eclipse will help you in bringing this divine Kundalini serpent energy through your body to release the blockages that are stuck. And if you have a spiritual practice or have a ceremonial way, know that with these eclipses, that becomes much more potent, and we're able to go through to the other side much quicker, and our prayers are received much quicker on the other side. Though there is a kind of energy of illusion that happens when we're working in the shamanic way. It's important to never fully believe our visions, but work with them as if they're dreams, and through the dreams interpret how our beliefs and how our ideas about reality and what we think we know shapes those dreams, those visions, so that we can really get clarity on what our true intentions are, what our true purpose is, and walk our path in a really clear, beautiful way. So thanks again, I love you, and I'm going to try to stay connected and look at the comments, but again, as I move in the split screen view, it might hate me.